Mm. So, good evening, welcome. And we are meeting again one more time, as we were saying these days, hoping to continue having glimpses of eternity, sharing moments in which we can feel, oh, I could be doing this forever, right? That means you have touched eternity, right? And you just have a moment, an experience, oh, I see myself doing this forever. Like Bhaktivinoda Swami will say, to the endlessness. I like that expression. I see myself doing this to the endlessness. Okay, that means eternity has granted us a blessing to. This is what it looks like. So, hoping we are having some of those experiences that carve deep some scars in our heart to start to see ourselves, to start to participate in eternity in that way. I see myself, okay, doing something. If I feel myself doing something, I feel like I could be doing this for eternity. You start to have a glimpse of who you can be in eternity, basically. Maybe not with all the detailed information of all who you are in eternity, but that's how it begins. The warming up, if you will. So I'm having some of those moments with you, so thank you so much for that. I hope it's always reciprocal. So, yeah, as part of that, part of our invitation in eternity is to continue to explore and investigate the depths of our hearts in connection to the divine by sharing, asking, inquiring. It's a quest, as we say, questions that set us on a quest. So the invitation today, like we did it extended last evening, is if you have any questions that create a quest, we join in that quest, and it's a journey. Probably to get more questions as a result of that. And being courageous enough to sit with the questions enough so they blossom into answers, but the answers always take us to further questions and so on and so forth. So again, as we say yesterday or the day before yesterday, we are exploring infinity. We can always explore in the spirit of service infinity more. Exploration project never ends. So any questions, any topics, any thoughts, something you would like to explore?
I haven't really formulated into a question, but more of just contemplation about the different traditions and different mystics and how they develop different relationships with God and how their love, as we're talking about, is ever increasing. And coming from our tradition, having more information about the personality of God being Krishna and how that sort of like we have personalities kind of like direct.
Nice.
That we have personalities that we can direct our kind of our relationship toward, whereas certain other traditions don't have kind of ways of visualizing who the object of the love is. As we have ways of visualizing forms. So I just wondered if maybe you could speak a little bit on that, about how, I guess the essence of the question is God going to appear to everybody differently, or is there a particular form that is always absolutely Krishna? Or is you saying God is love, as the love manifesting just in multiple ways for every individual? So I guess that's a question.
Yeah. So thanks for the question. And yeah, every time some question comes, good, nice question comes, like these ones are. I always remember Sukadev Goswami in the Bhagavatam. When Parikshit Maharaj presents some question, and he does that a lot. And many times Sukadev Goswami, before daring to say something in reply, so to say, he praises the question and praises the questioner. Like if it's Sukadev Goswami is like, oh, Parikshit, you are doing me such a great favor by bringing this question, by bringing some this important topic, and who knows where this question will take us. Your question will take us all on a quest together. So fasten your seatbelt. But thank you so much for igniting this odyssey, this journey through the question. So thank you, Shorpo. Thank you. Yeah, so I think it's a humbling way to begin to try this before trying to say something in reply, because if not, it's like, oh yeah, you have the question, you're in ignorance, and I'm the one who answers the question, dispels the ignorance, and I'm doing you a favor. But that's not what the Bhagavatam teaches, interestingly. Again, it's very, if we pay, and I go on in a minute to the question, but it's very interesting and probably counterintuitive to how we tend to think. Like to begin with, main guru figure, Sukadev Goswami, 16-year-old boy, and his disciple is probably double his age or more, right? The disciple is whatever, in his 30s, 40s, we don't know exactly, but not 16-year-old boy. He was an world emperor. He accepts as his guru someone who could be his child, but he accepts it as his guru. And not only that, but the child, quote unquote, the child is giving the lecture, and not only his disciple is double his age, but his own guru is listening to the lecture. His father and guru, Vyasada, is listening to the lecture, and the guru of his guru, Narad Muni, is listening to the lecture. So that's a template that the Bhagavatam gives, right? Like whatever the genuine current of descending truth is happening, doesn't matter how old are you, who is junior, who is initiated by whom. We are all disciples, we are all students trying to capture that revelation, right? And then again, the students presents a question, Parikshit Maharaj, and the teacher starts to praise the student and the question, and so it's a very beautiful pattern given there. But we have to see it also. And again, very counterintuitive how we may think about guru-disciple relationships or hierarchy or whatever, right? So going to the question, there are a few things we can say, of course. One, and I will say just quickly to dismiss a dangerous exclusivistic conclusion. It's not that the form we happen to be adoring is the only one, and nobody and everyone else has to conclude in our God, so to say, and everyone else is wrong or inferior, and the only way is worshiping Krishna. If not, sorry, but see you next lifetime. Right. So I remember last year I was in Jagannath Puri. I want to enter one temple, and one of the preachers said, he stops me. No, only Hindus. Next lifetime. In a charming way, he said, next lifetime. Oh, it's like if, the same. No, you get to heaven, and Jai Vijay opens the door. Sorry, only Gaudiya Vaishnav. Like next lifetime. Right? But I don't know. Till you don't worship my God, nobody can enter here. It's like, no, it's not like that. Even I will say, we say, okay, we worship the first Krishna, the personality of Krishna. But even in talking about Krishnas, we say in the morning, there are many Krishnas. No? There is place in eternity for Krishna in Mathura. There is place in eternity for Krishna in Dwarka. There is place in eternity for other personalities of God. Ram, Narayan, and many others that we may not know, to be honest. No, I'm not someone who likes to, okay, these are the ones we know in our tradition. So, okay, I'm not sectarian enough to say only Krishna, But only Krishna, Ram, Narayan, Vishnu, these the ones I know. We still want to keep things under our radar, our control. But the Bhagavatam says, with this, it's again very humbling statement. The Bhagavatam says, the avatars of Bhagavan, the descents into the world, are asankhya. Asankhya means uncountable. So you cannot count them, means endless. And the scriptures say every avatar has its own abode in Vaikuntha. Every divine descent has his, her, their corresponding abode in the spiritual world. So if the avatars are asankhya, uncountable, the corresponding abodes with the corresponding forms of the goddess are equally uncountable. Again, Vaikuntha means no limits, right? So it's funny how sometimes we may try unconsciously, no? But I've seen sometimes practitioners in different traditions, but imposing our own world of limitations upon Vaikuntha, upon the world without limits. Only this God, only this form, only this religion. And we can all create our own religious wars trying to defend our views. A fanatic Christian can say, no, the Bible says he's the truth, the light, the path, the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes from like this. How you can say, well, Krishna says in the Gita, abandon all religions and just surrender. So every tradition will have their own exclusivistic statement, which is not exclusivistic if you understand it in broader context, but you can make it an excuse to combat everyone else. And that was not the original plan, the original idea. On top of that, I would like to say that in terms of the ultimate attainment in eternity, let's put it that way, you can also attain, because we're talking so far about the personality of God, and there can be different forms, and go back there in a minute. I'd like to go also to the point that there's also possible to attain a realization in eternity which is impersonal. So there's no personality of God here. There's no personality of us. I mean, we are not aware of that. It's not that we stop being an individual, but our sense of individuality and personality, we are not aware due to some deep identification with Brahman. That's in the statements, clearly statement, one of the 5 muktis is Brahma Sayuja Mukti, merging into Brahman. For us, it doesn't mean that we lose our individuality, but you merge into Brahman enough as to lose sight of your individuality and experience what it means to attain some type of homogeneous identification with Brahman. Difficult to put even into words what that is. But that's a possibility. Not our cup of tea, but that's clearly stated in Shastra. Mukti, Sayuja Mukti. If that's Mukti, means that's attainable in eternity. Because sometimes I know comes the idea, if you attain that, you fall from there. But if that's clearly described in Shastra, as in the Bhagavad and in other texts, as some type of Mukti, you cannot fall from Mukti. If you fall from Mukti, that you cannot call that Mukti to begin with. No, this is a form of liberation, and you can fall from liberation, then you cannot call it liberation. So I'm just mentioning that to still broaden our prospect even more beyond the sense of personality, personal, eternal states. No? Brahman also is an option, and those who practice, certain paths, not ours, but certain paths, Jnana, Yoga, Advaita, Vedanta, etc., they will pursue that phase of the Absolute. And I think it's important for us to, even if it's not my cup of tea, to respect that. Because that's an attainment in eternity. I don't want to be disrespectful with eternity. If something is possible forever in eternity, there must be somehow something good in that. Probably not even something, right? Because Brahman is the face of the Absolute. Bhagavatam says, Brahmeti Paramadmeti Bhagavaniti Shabdyate. Vedanti tattva vidastitvam yat jnanam advayam. Reality is non-dual consciousness. And it is known as Brahman, Paramatman, Bhagavan. That's what the seers of truths declare. So, one of the dimensions of experience of the Absolute is impersonal. Again, that may not be our taste, but that can be the taste of many. And it's possible in eternity. So we have to, in my opinion, learn to honor that. If not, I'm insulting someone who has attained mukti. In one sense, it's glorious. Not my type of mukti, but I won't insult you because your mukti is not my type of mukti. No? It's like, oh, my favorite fruit is mango, mine is apple. I hate you. No? Or apple is horrible because it's not my favorite fruit. It's like, you're crazy. Right? It's fine, but you don't need to insult what's not your favorite thing. You can still appreciate that while not being your call, right? If not, we border dangerous fanaticism. I can only praise what I like. I can only like the people that think like me, that speak like me. It becomes more and more like self-referential, and whatever differs from what I like and I prefer, it's bad, it's inferior, I don't like it, I won't talk to them, I don't know how to talk to them. So many things, and probably our approach may end up being quite cultish and quite immature. And that's not what our acharyas show, what Mahaprabhu Goswami showed. They had very open interaction and appreciation with other traditions, other schools. Rupa Goswami is quoting other acharyas. Jiva Goswami Hitsandarbha's quotes Ramanuja, Madhva, even Shankaracharya, and not necessarily to refute Advaita Vedanta at times, but to support some points. He supports himself in Shankara. So all these things are there, right? So just to broaden the horizons and learn to, in my opinion, it's important in the particular chapter in history and time in the world we are today as a movement, to learn to engage in deep, meaningful conversations with people from sister traditions, and that includes people who pursue impersonal facets of the Absolute. I've had my conversations with people who I know they want merging, and they are nice people. It's like, right? I mean, it's not that I want merging, and it's not that by talking to them, it's like, oh, now I'm tempted about. I feel I'm losing my religion, like the song will say. Huh? Oh, no, it's not like that. The other person is not trying like to tempt me. I'm not trying to do that either. So it demands a healthy level of maturity in which I can appreciate your points, you can appreciate mine. I'm not trying to convert you, you're not trying to convert me. And we can even get inspired from each other. That's a challenge, but it's possible and it's beautiful. So all that to say again that there is an impersonal, undifferentiated possibility. It may not be our cup of tea, but it's there. And going back to personality, there are many personalities of Godhead. We may say Krishna for us the supreme personality of Godhead. But still, I will say for us, Gaudiya Vaishnava, some other people will say Narayana is the supreme personality of Godhead. A Sri Vaishnava will say Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu. And they will get to Vaikuntha by thinking like that. So how wrong are they? That's interesting. And we may get to Golok by thinking Krishna is the source of Narayana. And you get to your particular section in the spiritual world. So it's interesting because, again, the dualistic mind is, okay, who is right, who is wrong? Both are right. Okay. Because, again, at the end of the day, we are talking about the same person, right? Narayan, Vishnu, Brahman. They're not three different guys in the sky or something. They're the same non-dual absolute. Narsimha, Vamandev, Ramachandra, Sriman Mahaprabhu. We be careful of becoming polytheistic. All these different gods. No, it's the same person, same non-dual. Even the impersonal side is part of the same non-dual absolute. So that requires, practice and realization to integrate these dimensions and understand all this encompassed in this same reality. But there's we can say regarding your question or your exploration, exposition. Krishna says in the Gita, as you may know, Yatmam prapadyanti tam sataiva bhajamyaham. According to how someone approaches me or worships me, adores me. I like the word adore, because like when you say, oh, he's adorable, it's more like intimate, that he's worshipable. So we want intimacy in connection to the divine, not necessarily like distant worship. So according to someone adores me, Krishna says, I reciprocate accordingly. Which means reciprocate means in many ways. One of them being, I appear to that person in a corresponding form specific to the type of love they have for me. As we read today, I'll go back to Rati Rupa's notes here. Of course, very important notes. It's a good way to not feel that I'm reading from my own book. God becomes, remember?
What we were saying this morning. That God becomes.
Thank you.
I have to answer this.
I didn't say you had to answer. You took the microphone.
Is that what love requires?
Yes, very good teamwork. God becomes what love requires. So if a devotee has a certain type of love, that type of love makes God take a particular form that is required to reciprocate with that love. And the love that each devotee have is unique. Now let's say that all of you worship Krishna in Vrindavan. To give an example, Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, Gaur Nityananda, whatever may be the case. You worship the same Ishtadev, the same. But each one of you, the love that you will develop is not the same. No, it's not that you exactly feel the same and you are thinking of. Each one is a unique individual and each one will offer a unique love. Therefore, Bhagavan will reciprocate, adopting a unique form to reciprocate that unique love. God becomes what love requires. So we could say not only that there's one form of Krishna in Vrindavan, but there's one form for each devotee. God's form is carved. Let's be poetic. Let's take shelter in poetry again. God's form is carved out of the love of the devotee. Certain devotee has a certain love. Whoops. and Bhagavan adopts a particular shape, shaped by the love of his devotee. With this, I'm not saying that God has no original form, but again, God exists eternally, but never in isolation. So Krishna always existed as Yashoda Nandan because Yashoda always existed with him. There's a corresponding form to Yashoda's love called Yashoda Nandan Krishna. But it's not that began at some point, and before that there was God before being carved, so to say, by love. That's eternally happening. And to Sri Radha, another particular form. It's the same person, but adopting different forms. Like with Narada Muni, so even in Dwarka, Krishna is showing this 16,108 forms with each different queen. Narada Muni is like running as fast as he can to see if he catch Krishna red-handed. Like, oh, you're not there, you didn't came in time, you're still... No, he was in different forms, doing different things. to correspond with each particular devotee. It's the same person at the same time. Bahumurti ekamurtikam, says the Bhagavatam. It's one person, many forms. One form, many forms. One Krishna, many Krishnas. So that's a very interesting idea. I speak about that in the book as well, in one section, that God is a byproduct of love. That's how I put it. Another one-liner to highlight. But, God is a byproduct of love. There's a certain love that makes God to appear in a certain way. If Krishna will be here playing the flute in tree, Banga curved in tree, and Hanuman appears, Jai Sri Ram, a flute disappears and a bow and an arrow appear, and Bhagavan appears as Sri Ram to correspond with that love. Immediately, because it's the shape. There's always a corresponding shape to a corresponding type of love. You cannot separate the form of God and the love of the devotee. Because if you take away basically a particular love for a particular form of the divine, then the divine, the divine, the absolute without prem basically becomes Brahman. No? So what gives shape to the absolute, and this is not something that happens in time again, but it's love. It makes you act in a certain way, speak in a certain way, and your form even changes. It's like, I mean, we are not Krishna, but just to have a glimpse. I don't know, if you're here and you have a 2-month-old children, and your baby children comes, the father or the mother will be transformed by the appearance of that person. The face will change, maybe the color, the way of speaking. It's another shade. Then your boss comes, you're another person. Like, then your mom comes, you're the same person, but you're another person. So even part of your form changes. What to speak in a spiritual identity that is made of love and is so affected by love. So yeah, I mentioned also about that in radical personalism, because that for me is one of the beautiful ways to speak about what is radical personalism. Krishna is so radically personal that he takes a particular form to reciprocate with the love of every particular devotee. You cannot get more radically personal than that. It's not like, okay, there's one Krishna in Vrindavan, whomever worships Krishna in Vrindavan, that's the form. Yeah, of course, in general, that's the form. Bluish, peacock feather, flute, this, that. But still, those are general details. The specificity, the uniqueness of the form, of the mood, of the relationship, of the interaction, that's very personal between you and your God, so to say. And in connection with other traditions, probably some of them or most of them, we may say, probably they don't have a level of specificity in terms of details about who God is in person. But I will personally don't feel superior to them because of that. Because at the end of the day, all the information that we may have, which is very valuable, I'm not downplaying that, it's very beautiful, very detailed. But until and unless we realize all that internally, that's only information. Information, like details, knowledge that you can get them in your head and you can learn by heart all the, I don't know, the varieties of Krishna's flutes and the sizes and the materials and the names, and Radharani's earrings names and her Uncle Bell's names, or her Veena name, and you can go to the world and like show off, right? Like, did you know that not only there's God, but there's a goddess, and we know who she is, and she plays an instrument. You don't know which is this. We know. It's a Veena. You don't even know what's a Veena. We know it's the Veena. You don't even know what's the name of the Veena. Do you know that? You don't know. We know. So it can be just information that makes you develop a superiority complex. It makes you proud and arrogant and gives a toxic sense of certainty also. Like, we know everything about God. But if you are not having deep realization, you know nothing. And some other tradition may not have all that detailed information, but many of its practitioners may have a very deep, mystical, transforming inner experiences, and many of those things may be revealed in their hearts, even if they never knew them to begin with. It's not that it cannot happen. Who are we to put limits how it can? No, it cannot happen in that way. Only we can. Why? So I especially value in certain traditions where maybe there's not that much detailed information about the divine, and with whatever information they have, they, in some cases at least, they dedicate their practice, their life very deeply and seriously, and you can really feel, wow, so many gifts of divine love came as a result of that. So that cannot be untrue, unreal. There cannot be a personality of God not there, not reciprocating with them. It's clear that it's happening. And we may, some on the other side, some Gaudiya Vaishnava may be filled with information and details, and they will be just in an online inquisition fighting with one another about those details. And this is superior, and my guru is higher, and your sampradaya is not bona fide, and you are an offender, and blah, 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 blah. Right? I'm giving extreme examples. No, there's not just that. There are so many things in between, but yeah, I personally think we should remain very, very humble, and again, okay, we have a deeply clear revelation about the personality of God, then that implies an equally deep commitment to be personal in that relationship, as we're talking today in the morning. Am I relating to the personality of Godhead as a person? Or I'm still being quite impersonal in my approach to the Supreme Personality of Godhead? It's not enough to say Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead if I'm not treating him as a person. Or if I'm not treating myself as a person, or others as a person, or as much as a person as we can be. Because we can treat each other as a person on some level, but we may not be as personal as we could be in our relationship with ourselves, with other people, with the world, with the divine. So, yeah, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is there also the Supreme Personality of myself to relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Have I explored what's my Supreme Personality? What's all that I can be as a person? I'm working on that. Because if not, it's not enough to say, hey, Krishna is Supreme Personality, Supreme. But how much you are developing your own personality to correspond, to relate to someone who is the Supreme Personality. So yeah, I wouldn't say that, in conclusion, that, yeah, only those who subscribe to our dogma, to our tradition, to our idea, that's the only way, the only possibility. And there are the personal traditions, and some of them may have more information, less information, but at the end of the day, we don't know what's going on in the heart of different people, and that's where the real thing takes place, so to say. What do you think, Prem Kishore?
No certainty.
Uncertainty?
No certainty in some way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It just leaves me feeling like there's no, what we've been speaking about, like there's no certainty with love. So therefore there can be no certainty on how our journey toward a loving relationship with God will look or be. That we can only be in the moment and go where it takes us. And we can't sort of like I guess superimpose on with our mind like how it's gonna be. But then I don't know, I guess that brings up thoughts of like, meditating on different forms of, things we're attracted to. Like, where does that kind of play into it? Because that is an imposition of the mind, trying to drag us in a certain direction because that's what we feel like now in our conditioned state attracted to. or is that real? What is that part of the journey?
I cannot tell. It depends. It depends. Of course, regarding the uncertainty part, uncertainty is not a bad word, right? We need to make peace with uncertainty. We cannot predict how any relationship is going to unfold. I mean, I'm sure the relationship with your parents or wife or whomever, even if you try to predict, okay, the next 20 years things will blossom in this direction, and then the 20 years pass and you look back, it's like, no, it didn't happen that way. Thank God, probably. It happened as it was supposed to happen. It was way better than all my predictions and attempt to control. So, yeah, it's uncertain how any given relationship will unfold because it's not all up to you. It's a participation. There's other, again, being personal means there's a person on the other side of the relationship, and I'm allowing the other person to participate with their input, and I cannot control their input. If I would like to control their input, that's dangerous. That's a toxic relationship. So relating to Krishna means inviting Krishna to bring his input also. It's not just how I want to do things. And Krishna, you adjust, please. It's not either Krishna, you tell me what to do and I don't have any input whatsoever. Krishna is like, oh, that's boring. Give me your input. Like he's telling to Arjuna at the end of the Gita. Tell all this. What do you think, Arjuna? Tell me your input. He's inviting for a conversation. So that's the foundation of any relationship. The invitation for the other person to participate, and that immediately brings unpredictability and uncertainty because you don't know what the other person will do, and we don't even know what we will do tomorrow. Now we think, well, but I know better what I will do than what you will do. I don't know. I'm not so sure. So yeah, since there is so much uncertainty around, it's good that we learn to live with that in peace. But at the same time, we have a foundation of certainty. In this case, for example, that Krishna loves you unconditionally. So rest in that certainty also. So everything else that is uncertain is okay. That's what Christian mystic author Henry Nouwen say. The only certainty is that God loves you unconditionally. Everything else is uncertain. But no problem if you have the one certainty in place. That's why it's so important to have that one certainty in place, because if that's not in place and everything else is uncertain, you will feel I have no certainty whatsoever because you don't have the one certainty in place. So everything uncertain is too much. It's overwhelming. And many times, because of that, we try to make all those things that are uncertain and that should remain uncertain, we try to make them certain. And it doesn't work. It's exhausting. Rather than trying to accept the one certainty that is already happening. You are fully loved and accepted by Krishna unconditionally. Try to ground yourself in that certainty till you are grounded enough to welcome everything else as an uncertainty. But all the uncertainties in the context of that certainty. Then it's more. Yeah. Uncertainty is humbling, no doubt. But again, there is certainty. There's uncertainty, there's certainty. So the two have to be balancing one another. Too much certainty, if we want everything certain, eventually that becomes like I speak also in radical personalism about chaos and order. If you want too much order, too much certainty, it ends up becoming a totalitarian regime. Everyone think like that, speak like that, dress like that, houses have to be painted like that, everything has to be in order, in place. That's suffocating. That's too much certainty, too much order. But if you go to the extreme of all uncertain, sheer chaos, absolute anarchy, that's too much also. The system collapses. We need some some certainty, some north in the compass. So that's there. You are unconditionally loved by the divine. That's a lot. But it's only one certainty, but there's so much there. That's why we need to go deep in that direction. So everything else being uncertain is not overwhelming us, killing us. And then, yeah, regarding our attraction to certain forms, we're talking in general. In some cases, maybe something more mental. In some cases, maybe genuine realization coming from inspiration. Sometimes you only know that in time. I don't know if in the beginning, just to give you, I don't know, an example. No, as a child, you lived with your father in Africa, and he used to hang around a lot with lions. And then you become a Gaudiya Vaishnava, you have some attraction to Nrsimhadev for some particular reason. Probably those are not bhakti samskars, no devotional impressions coming from, but it's just something more childhood samskar. And it's okay. I mean, we are not saying that's bad or wrong, but that's not enough to define who is your Istadev. So in time, as one progresses in practice, one may, those things may become clear with proper guidance. But yeah, it's definitely true. Again, like Krishna says in the Bhagavatam, I take a particular form according to the nature of the approach of my devotee. Literally, in the Gita, he says, I reciprocate accordingly. In the Bhagavatam says, I take a particular form according to how my devotee meditates in me. Which, of course, doesn't mean, okay, I'll start to meditate now about Krishna with any form that I like. Playing an electric guitar with 108 arms and whatever. I try to imagine make a form according to, no, that's not what it means. There are certain parameters according to revelation. No? And then there are possibilities in that. There are unlimited possibilities, but unlimited possibilities doesn't mean anything and everything, right, at the same time. So some thoughts. I hope that helped. Thank you. Who else would like to bring an offering to the table? We're hungry for more, so bring an offering to the table.
Subject matter.
It's fine.
It's
all interrelated. No problem.
It will end up.
Yes.
I'm sure. Mostly on the topic of unconditional love. And last time you were here, you gave one lecture about that. You may not remember. I do remember that well.
I think that was the first time.
Is it the first time? Okay.
But it's okay.
Yeah. Yep. And of course, your upcoming book is about that. Right. So, and this is coming from a curiosity about psychology. So the psychology idea is that if you have an attachment relationship in early life, a healthy one with a parental figure, and they're able to fulfill your needs as a child, then you don't have I think you put it like the existential gaping hole, right? As you grow older, you're not just going around the world looking to fulfill a fault that has been inbuilt into me as I've grown older. Rare to come across that, very rare, or varying degrees of that, of course, as well. And contemplating the unconditional love, it's almost like you could put a plug into that hole a little bit. Let me just think about how to phrase this a little bit more. Can you achieve that effect by having deep acceptance of the unconditional love of God? meaning rather than going and addressing one's psychological needs. And of course, there are many ways in the modern world of psychology to do that, and the child work, a whole variety of different things, some of which we were talking about. It does seem as if the byproducts of having deep acceptance of unconditional love, things like an increase in self-worth, because Krishna is on my side. He loves me. I'm valuable. And this is something that a parent should be trying to instill in their child, that you are loved, and hold that with you throughout your life. You're deeply loved. I'm getting to the question is that most of us did not receive that 100%. And that's not the fault of the parents, it's just how it is, it's just the will. Can we, by having that, just the unconditional love alone of God and the acceptance and holding that in our heart, is that sufficient to build the whole?
What would you say if someone asks you that question?
No, I would say it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I'm interested in what you
No, I will say something when I'm asking you. But you just will say no, and that's the end of your answer.
No.
So what will be like a necessary complement to that?
And as I see it, the direction it goes in is the difference between love and lust. And love, as you've mentioned many times, an overflow. I'm full. I've got this. I'm satisfied. I've got my needs fulfilled here. In the form of love, has fulfilled all my needs. My deep longings are sorted. Therefore, when I go to have my loving relationship, I'm not just trying to extract from the other person, a Krishna, or I chose a form of God according to our love. Noted. I feel like it would be hard to achieve that overflow without having done some personal work first. That's my understanding. Yeah.
So yeah, basically I agree. Of course, at the same time, there may be exceptions to the rule. I'm not making the exception the rule, but I don't feel like saying, okay, let's say someone had this lacking from their source relationships, their parents, in validation and in making the child feeling seen. You're seen, you're held, you're loved, you have value, you have worth. There may be some lacking there. I wouldn't say, like, if someone genuinely connects with God and very deeply opens and have a deep experience of your unconditional love, seen, held, and I wouldn't say that's not possible to happen at all in any case, that someone can be fully healed and transformed only by that. Necessarily, they need something else. Mostly, I will say yes, but who we are to say, no, that can happen in any case with anyone. It's possible that someone may come from a very broken place from their childhood with trauma and dysfunctionality. And sorry?
Yadrichaya. It's
The?
Yadrichaya.
Yadrichaya. Okay, yeah.
That would be one.
Yeah. So it's possible. It's possible. And they contact the divine and they really have that deep validation. And of course, but also there comes the thing. Since you mentioned Yadrichaya, which is a Sanskrit term that speaks about how bhakti comes to our lives, I won't say randomly, but out of its own volition. But many times that happens through the agency of sadhus, or the agency of representatives of bhakti. And this I say in the sense of many times we can experience love's unconditional love by how we are being unconditionally loved by the sadhu. No, so that's another way of. Still, I may not be working personally so much, but I may find someone in my life, and I'm not saying a sadhu is a Gaudiya Vaishnava. I'm just saying an agent of unconditional love. And because I remember once I was talking to a devotee, we're talking in Mayapur. He asked me, okay, Maharaj, imagine that someone had a very rough childhood, no unconditional love, all conditional. If you want to call that some type of love, everything was conditional. You have to be like this and like that in order to earn, to deserve, to be accepted, to be loved, blah, 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 blah. And worse than that, lots of violence and abuse. That person is really broken, maybe even resentful and bitter. And their Swami Padmanabha comes and tells that person, but Krishna loves you unconditionally. Probably that person will hit me in the face. No. But how dare you say that? Look what happened to me. Well, that's another conversation like the one we had last evening. Why God allowed that to happen to anyone? That's all intertwined, right? We start to see interrelationship. Of course, I hope Swami Padmanabha won't say that to a person like that, because if you see them in that situation, I won't say, but God loves you unconditionally. But I will try, because the question that this devotee asked me was, this person may not believe in unconditional love because they have never experienced it. It's like that. No, I don't believe in that. I don't know what that is. I mean, I heard the words, but I have zero experience of that. So far, it doesn't exist. So the process to make them experience that is not to tell them, but Krishna loves you unconditionally. Just accept it, surrender to, because for the person that's, I don't know what you're talking about. Loves me unconditionally. What's that? No? They have no experiential connection to those words. It's like Chinese, Japanese. I don't know what's that. So the only way you can possibly help that person to get closer to God's unconditional love is by you embodying that yourself and extending that to that person as much as you can, and give that person an undeniable, tangible experience of. And that may take time. No, it's not just in 5 minutes I gave you the revelation of unconditional love. In the beginning, you may do it, and the other person may be like, "What's that?" Because it's new. What's that? And even if you tell them it's unconditional love, no. And in time, the person may gradually put the guard down and start to open and gradually open and close quickly, just in case, defense mechanism, so many things. But yeah, we are invited to embody unconditional love for others. If we experience that somehow, in some way, then we are invited to extend that to others. So, and again, this doesn't discount that some people may need to do some therapy or healing or whatever modality of working on their inner wounds. But at the same time, we need to receive that from someone anytime. So whether it is a Gaudiya Vaishnava or another person from another tradition, or a therapist, or someone who is accompanying from a ideally unconditional place to some degree or another. Again, there may be degrees of unconditionality also.
That's usually the course of therapeutic approach is unconditional regard.
Yeah.
And it might not be divinely inspired, but it still has effect.
Yeah. And for someone who has never experienced any of that, some degree of that is already, wow, what was that? You are listening to me? You care for me? I have value? Really? Nobody told me that before. It's like a whole new reality that the person in the beginning may be even shocked to discover. Like, what's that? I have value? Are you really faking that you care for me? Or because I'm paying to you, you're doing that, right? Still, all the self-doubt starts to come, right? Like self-sabotage. So, I don't know, it's genuine. I care for you. You're a unit of value. You're a unit of worth. And here still we are not talking about God loves you unconditionally. Krishna says in the Gita, the soul is amazing. But yeah, so again, I wouldn't deny the possibility of someone having a deep healing and transformation, but some miraculous divine intervention and inner experience. But I wouldn't take that as the rule and expect everyone to just, someone comes with that, it's like, okay, pray to Krishna and wait for your inner transformation. Or probably we will need to do some work on this and explore and go deep, and of course it's also a complex exploration, because you probably need to go to some very painful moments or things that probably one has not even acknowledged, and are there, and confront the wounds and deal with the wounds in the way that the wound becomes a womb, you say? Yeah. So gives birth to something by acknowledging that, healing that. As you say, probably if it came with our source relationships, our parents, trying also to heal that relationship, which is not easy, but try to say, okay, they also had their parents, so what they did receive from their parents, probably most times they try to give something, improve the whatever version they received, as insufficient as we may have still perceived it. Parents are also children, broken children many times. We have to see our own parents as children. But yeah, in general, I would recommend in most cases that, yeah, there's always some inner work to be done in terms of introspection and self-analysis and observation and healing. That's also an artha nivritti. No? For me, an artha nivritti is not just I chant Hare Krishna and all my stuff gets healed automatically. But it's I chant Hare Krishna and I'm willing to be aware of whatever comes as a result of that. Because practicing also sheds light on stuff. Chetu darpana marjanam. Start to clean the mirror of the subconscious. And some dust starts to come, and you start to, what's coming here? Oh, dragon number 1, dragon number 2. Hello, what's going on here? Chanting Hare Krishna brings up dragons? I didn't know. shedding light on the shed, right? You have the word shed, right, in English? Like when you throw all the stuff that you don't know where to put. Okay, throw it to the shed. But then you need to shed light on the shed, and at that point the shed has a life of its own, and there's 3,000 dragons inside. And you don't want to open that door. You will think, oh, let's construct a second shed, so we don't have to open the first one. Let's make things easier, right? We have Balaram here. He helps us with construction. Balaram plays shed number 2, shed number 3, shed number 4. And at one point, everything is a shed, and it's like, my God.
Collection of shit.
Yeah, and they are taking more life of their own. They are claiming, open the door, please open the door. You need to confront the dragon. And once you confront the dragon disappears, actually, like the sacred histories around the world say. If you give your back to the dragon, you'll want to see that the dragon feels bigger, more threatening. When you dare to look at the dragon in the eye, the dragon evaporates, so to say. No? When you name certain things, take the courage with support, with guidance, again, because by ourselves sometimes it may feel, oof, I don't know if I can do this by myself. We need sometimes, support, encouragement, guidance. So anartha nivritti is all that for me. Also the willingness to shed light on the shed, right? To confront, to acknowledge the things that need to embrace the process of inner transformation and healing with all that it implies. The cleansing, like the Gundicha margin, when the disciples, the devotees of Mahaprabhu were going to clean the Gundicha temple, they were going to get messy. If you clean a temple that is dirty, you get dirty yourself. the temple ends up being clean, you end up being a mess. So it's a messy situation, all in between. Of course, at the end you feel, oh, so nice, it's clean. But it's, so Mahaprabhu, before they start the whole cleansing process, he garlands each one of his disciples, right? Like implying, oh, what you are about to do is glorious. You are about to shed light on the shed. Yeah, basically. Yeah, of course, he's not using those words, but ki jai to you. No? You are willing to remove the dust. And as we know how that happens, they pass the broom once, and Mahaprabhu said, let's pass the broom twice and thrice. And now let's bring water and clean, and let's clean again. No, it's not they say, oh, let's pass the broom as quick as possible. It's clean. That's Gundicha Marjan Ki Jai. Mahaprabhu said, no. We are warming up. That's layer 1. Dragon 1, 2, 3. Not as something bad, again, something glorious. That's why Mahaprabhu is garlanding each devotee. You're on a glorious project here. And he's leading by example. No? As we see in the Chaitanya, his pile is bigger than anyone else's. Right? So that's the example of the teacher telling the student, okay, we'll shed light on the shed. We'll confront the dragon. I'll do it also myself. And the teacher is doing better than anyone else and leading by example, so everyone else gains courage to, yes. I'm like, okay, let's jump on the cliff. I'm terrified to jump. So the leader will say, okay, I'll jump first. Go, Haribo. And then the person comes again, I'm here. Krishna reset me down. He holds space for me. I told you he was the receiver. You didn't believe. That's why you didn't jump. I jumped. I'm here again to tell you that it's true. You want to jump? No, still I'm terrified. Shall we jump together? Okay. Go, Haribo. And then I'm still okay. And now you can take someone else's hand, and so on, and create this circle of support and healing. Yeah. There's one hand coming from that metal box. That metal box there's one outside. That's a shed there. That's there.
Yeah, don't open that.
Yeah.
Just quite tangent on it, but a kind of related topic, because we're talking about the overlap of emotions and spirituality, basically. And although you can't exactly separate all of these facets of our being, they don't individually go into different compartments. I was reading something in this Connie's Wife book we were discussing, and
it's Debbie's shed coming the dream world.
And she was giving an example when she's giving examples of spiritual institutions where there's been some corruption, and she was specifically giving quite a lot of examples about Buddhism, and in those cases, a lot of the time the leaders were chosen, like the Dalai Lama, as a young child, and then groomed accordingly to become a spiritual leader, but often kind of a bit lacking in other forms of their human development. And then she was pointing out, she's being a psychologist, obviously she's looking at it from that particular lens. But then how, when they have very inappropriate behavior as a leader and an adult, she was saying, well, look, they were quite emotionally underdeveloped. They hadn't learned these particular empathy skills, basic human, healthy, emotional, communicative skills. And I like that because it gives it a sort of clarity to look at it from that perspective. But what I'm kind of curious about is that how can you even separate those? Because what you were just saying here in this exploration of this idea is that unconditional love can supersede the other requirements potentially, not always. We should endeavor also, and with our endeavor we get grace as well, not as a deserving thing, but as in our capacity to receive increases, right? Should I explain more, or do you kind of where I'm going with that? Are they separate compartments, or do they overlap?
I will personally say that, and these are some authors also exploring this. Is it possible to put it in another words? Is it possible to be vertically developed, but horizontally underdeveloped? Right? Is it possible to wake up without having grown up? These are words, right? But these are different authors like Ken Wilber and others who will argue that it's possible, that you can be spiritually advanced, but humanly not necessarily as advanced in correspondence. It can happen. There are degrees of this, of course. It's not like just black and white. You're totally this and zero of that. There are degrees, and of course, then there is the question, okay, how much should I work on my emotional, psycho-emotional development? Because there may be no end to how much can I refine that. And also in itself, that's not the goal. So also maybe, okay, we have to gain some considerable healthy foundation of that, but not to the point, at least I would say for myself, not to the point of neglecting my spiritual life. Because you can be very psycho-emotionally balanced and you can be an atheist. And I'm not condemning that. I'm just saying that can happen. And you can be a staunch theist and be ready for the madhouse. Maybe I'm breaking it too much. But there are some overlapping also of these two, of one lacking the other. That's why, as I mentioned in the chapter on individuation and radical personalism, quoting Carl Jung, he will say that, and I like that, he say that in nowadays, in the modern times we are living, of course he said that many years ago, but still speaking about the times we are living, I think that's still applicable. We shouldn't, I don't think that we should speak so much in terms of transcendence, but wholeness. Not so much like transcendence, like waking up, but wholeness, which includes waking up, but also growing up. Integration. Again, we may see that in practitioners. In one sense, they may have, they have developed very advanced in certain departments, even mystical departments, some psychic perception, but emotionally underdeveloped in this or that area of relationship, and some dysfunctionality may end up happening, even an abuse, not even because they intentionally, in some cases at least, they were planning to do that, but they haven't covered that base in their formation, so they didn't know how. Not to justify anything, just to, sometimes it may happen because of that. And something that I've been thinking, because sometimes the devotees have asked me, okay, in our tradition, let's say Gaudiya Vaishnavism, how to harmonize this, because someone will say, okay, what if someone is very spiritually advanced and leaves their body and they were not that psycho-emotionally wholesome? Where do they go? Can they enter Golok Vrindavan? We cannot say who enters or not, but can they enter Golok Vrindavan without that degree of wholeness? Maybe there's a section in Golok Vrindavan for the underdeveloped, and then they will be promoted to the, okay, now I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying, which could make sense in this connection, is, for example, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he will say in his Ragavartma Chandrika, that someone who develops I don't know, divine love in this life, hypothetically, as much as you can develop divine love, because there are degrees of development, we will be born in your next life in a planet Earth where Krishna is performing his lila with his eternal associates. You were born from the womb of eternal Brajavasi and receive. And generally, the idea is, but generally, the idea is, in this life, you can only develop certain amount of prem. Because prem, other degrees of intensity of prem are too intense. And if you have not been born receiving those samskars to allow yourself such intensity, it's too much. So the main explanation is, therefore, you need to be born in Vrindavan, on planet Earth, surrounded by day one by eternal associates of Bhagavan, receiving that powerful impressions. So all the remaining developments of divine love can happen, and your system is not collapsing. That's one explanation. But another explanation, this connection I will make, is, and if you had any underdeveloped psycho-emotional issues, but you have prem somehow, let's imagine that you can have prem and still be psycho-emotionally underdeveloped in some areas. You may be born in that place where you are surrounded by eternal associates of Bhagavan who are very wholesome, very transcendental, very psycho-emotionally balanced. So from day one, from the womb, you will receive all those samskars to put that in place and continue reaching whatever further is to reach, and so on. So that could be a way of thinking how that's accommodated. But even if that's the case, and this is kind of an idea that came to me, I don't have any source to quote in this connection, but somehow it makes some sense. And even if I say, okay, therefore, if that's the case, then I just concern myself with developing prem and not developing myself psycho-emotionally, because that's all accommodated. But I won't say, if you take that stance, probably you won't get that far. Like if you, oh no, then I avoid that consciously. So that's some form of spiritual bypass.
Yeah.
Because as much as you are aware, you should endeavor for that balance, because that's included in the scripture. As we talked yesterday, Varna Ashram, balance as a human being in our emotionality, sattva. Sattva has to do with balance in all the dimensions. So as much as I can be aware of, I should try to be as balanced as I can in all the dimensions. Due to childhood trauma or whatever, I may not be able even to be aware of my psycho-emotional lacking. That's a different story. And I'm sincerely trying to be a devotee, and I may become very spiritually advanced, but due to lackings, I'm not seeing my lackings. That's a different story than if I know I have this unresolved stuff that I need to work on. No. That will be solved in Gokul and the earthly Vrindavan with the Nitya Siddhas. We figure that out later. That's I don't think that's let's say a viable argument, so to say.
Yeah, it's irresponsible. You're not
Exactly.
You're not being accountable.
Yeah, once you're being shed light on something, you have to honor that. That's why, again, Mahaprabhu's first of the 7 effects of the chanting of the name is Chetadarpana Marjanam, which is chanting will clean the mirror of your subconscious mind. Which basically the implications of that is shedding light on the shed. Chitta is the subconscious mind, the shed. Or we have all that stuff that we are not aware of on a daily basis. So chanting, purifying will bring the unconscious to the conscious. Now, things that you are not usually seeing, you start to become more sensitive to that. So what do you do with that? That's implication. Chetodarpana Marjana means whenever those things in the unconscious come to the conscious, you have to do something with that. You have to take responsibility, not say, oh, that will be a harmonizing Gokul in my future life. No. That comes to your awareness. Honor that properly. And there's lots of healing and purification that happens beyond your awareness as well. But whatever comes to your awareness, by practice, by association, by life circumstance, you cannot push that to the next lifetime, so to say. Oh, that will be so late. That will be some words to say in reply to that.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think.
I'm just remembering on the recent podcast with Kenneth Oldmeadow.
Yeah.
He makes that point exactly.
I mean, recent for all of you, I recorded that a few months ago, so
Yeah.
you may have to remind me about the
Recently
topics.
released.
Yeah.
And
Just because I may not remind every detail that you may have fresh in your mind.
yeah, he makes that point that there will be an exact correlation between psycho-emotional development and spiritual development, and that you won't get any kind of discrepancy between the two. They will exactly correlate with each other. I thought I would like to explore that more.
Yeah, to be honest, I myself in the past thought that like that also. I thought more, I mean, I don't want to say rigidly, but I thought more like, yeah, as much as spiritual advanced you are, that means a corresponding developing of that. And if that's not there, means you are not spiritually advanced. And now I feel different. Yeah, I can see that there are some nuance in all that. After going through some personal experiences. When you can generally see and realize, oh, this person is advanced spiritually and is very lacking emotionally. And that's very paradoxical.
Yeah.
Again, that's very like, well, I thought that was not supposed to be the case. I thought the two were together. That's like kind of an intuition, but then you realize, no. But I cannot deny this spiritual advancement or realization or certain transmissions that happen. But then when it comes to the level of personal relationships and communication and dealing with each other, like, you're in kindergarten. Without disrespecting, but it's like, wow, sometimes there's an abyss between the two. But I cannot deny the other part, but I cannot deny the other. So that's why I personally came to the conclusion after some personal experience that the qualification to be, for example, a guru or a spiritual teacher in our tradition, of course, there are verses in scripture that say having knowledge of Shastra, having realization of that knowledge. But also, for example, the Bhagavatam says, Shabdi Parichanishnatam Brahmani Upashamashrayam. Upashamashrayam means you have taken shelter in tranquility. It's a very cryptic phrase. What does it mean to take shelter in tranquility? It's not just like, For me, at least, it means, and sometimes that will be translated to have controlled mind and senses. Okay, but what does it mean? Because if I have controlled mind and senses, but I have a very dysfunctional psycho-emotional life, and I get triggered by unresolved trauma, how much that's controlled mind and senses? So for me, taking shelter in tranquility means also have at least a considerable degree of wholeness, psycho-emotional wholeness and balance. So as a guru, as a guide, you don't get affected or triggered when you are interacting with people and with your disciples, and you're sometimes mistreating them or behaving in ways that are literally abusive. And you may have knowledge of Shastra, you may have spiritual realization, but you may be lacking on the psycho-emotional human side. So I think that's a necessary adhikar, eligibility for someone to serve in the capacity of guru, with dealing with other people. If you're an Avadut living in the cave, that's something different, right? You're a madman in your own place, you're not interacting, okay, that's it. But if you're into relationships and dealing with the journey of everyone, you have to have the necessary wholeness, so the journey of other people are not triggering your own journey, or the lackings of other people are not, if your own lackings are mirror, at least they are mirror in a way that you can work on that, and you don't get like triggered and behave in ways that are not healthy for the disciple or for the teacher, for that matter. So I think that's another layer that needs to be included in the list, because if not, as advanced, as knowledgeable as a guru may be, many times the relationships end up being traumatizing for many. And I've seen, beyond my own experience, I've seen so many other cases and stories with different people. I'm not blaming anyone, just it is what it is. So what do we do about it? It's 8:15. You had a question, Bhadra. More than one question. You are going to the other island. You raise your hand first and we go through all those questions. Nobody else in the other island is allowed to make any questions. If you're watching this lecture, Bhadra has all exclusive rights, at least for the first few days. So we put the sharing to rest, so we share prasad doesn't become later. And tomorrow morning we have one more sharing at the usual time, 11 a.m. New Zealand time, just in case. So thanks so much. Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Nam Sankirtan ki jai, Sadhu Sangha ki jai. Gaur Premanandi.